All right, got a nice heavy pack. Got a very heavy pack, and I have a very heavy pack because I'm about ready to start on a very ill-advised loop. What are we gonna call this? What am I gonna call this? I'll call it the Sunset Bluff Summit Loop. How about that? And the Sunset Bluff Summit Loop could be anywhere between 4,500 and 6,500 feet of climbing. There are differing accounts. But either way, when I'm done with this, I'm not going to be in a good mood. Or I'll be in a fantastic mood. Fantastically delirious mood. The Bluff Mountain Loop, as I'm choosing to refer to it, is the far prettier, far more complicated, and difficult sibling of the Tarbell Loop. Riding this loop nets about 22.5 miles with about 4,600 feet of climbing, according to Strava. Now, I'm just calling this a loop. It's not really single track, but I'm calling it a loop trail because this is what you would ride if you wanted to see the east side of the Yacolt Burn. So 2,900 feet of the climbing that you're going to do on this trail happens in the first 8 miles of the ride. There are some steep sections, needless to say, although the majority of the mileage does end up being on roads, like I said earlier, but I'm telling you, the trade-off is absolutely worth it. The best place to start this ride is at the bottom of the 173 trail, also known as Summit Springs. I'll leave GPS coordinates for the parking area and the description for the video. It's very close to the Sunset Falls campground. From this parking area, jump on your bikes and continue along the Sunset Hemlock Road, also known as the 41 Road, for about 2 miles. This part of the ride is easy and mostly downhill. Take the sharp right onto the 4109 when the road arrives at this hairpin. Continuing up to the left eventually does lead like to the other end of the Bluff Mountain Trail, but that is not how we're going to get there today. After turning right, you'll arrive at the lowest point on this ride, which is the bridge over Copper Creek. From here, you're going to climb about 3,000 feet over 6 miles. It's every bit as difficult as it sounds. Before you object to all this road climbing, please keep in mind that the 4109 is no ordinary road. Oh man, look at these. Look at these freeway 4x4s parked on the side of the road. Mediocre. What? A Tacoma? Why even bother owning a Tacoma if you're gonna just leave it here? Come on. This road is so deteriorated that it's really more of a wide trail than a proper road. Plus, watching people try to get their cars up this and abandoning them by the side of it is kind of part of the adventure. Give pep talks. Tell the drivers they can make it if they try hard enough. Make sure you're nowhere in sight when their oil pan gets ripped out. After what seems like an eternity of climbing, the road opens up to a parking area with expansive views, providing a glimpse of the greatness to come. So stop and have a snack here, while hikers who drove up here gawk at you. By now, the road is bad enough that the only cars that have made it this far are Subarus, trucks, and SUVs. Like, seriously, this road is terrible. Don't drive up that road unless you absolutely have to. Really, a dirt bike is probably the best tool for getting to the top of the 4109. Nothing else is a guarantee. At this point, you've climbed somewhere around 2,500 feet, but we heard you really like climbing, so there's another 1,000 feet or so of additional climbing to get up Silver Star to the junction with the Bluff Mountain Trail. The views up here are stunning, as should be expected, and there will be a large procession of hikers everywhere gawking at you on your bike. After entering back into the trees near the summit, the trail drops in elevation a little, then climbs, and then you'll find this intersection. If you've never been to the summit of Silver Star, it's definitely up there. But this is already a 4-hour ride to begin with, and climbing up to the summit and back down is going to add another hour minimum. with like yet another 500 feet or so of climbing. So honestly, I recommend simply getting onto the Bluff Mountain Trail from this point. Make a separate trip to go see the summit of Silver Star. There's more excellence to come. From this intersection, there is a quarter-mile of side cut through this noble fir forest before the trail breaks out onto the most ridiculously arresting view. This is also where the first downhill of this whole ride starts, but that won't matter because the scenery up here is really, truly arresting. The views will impede your progress. Have lunch here and enjoy. Look up to the summit of Silver Star to see spindly little humans walking around and gaze down at all the game trails threading their way across the rocks below. The forests that were burned in the gorge fires are even visible, like clearly visible from here. We're talking about the forest fires that were a couple years ago here. This section of trail does drop in elevation, but it's hardly a ripping fast descent. Even if you do manage not to stop every 45 feet to gawk at the view, it's rough, narrow, and rocky. Most of this corridor looks like it hasn't seen a weed whacker in years, so it's rare to even see what the tread looks like, let alone shred it. That isn't to say it's not fun, it's just technical fun. It's not like every single ride has to be a flow-tastic shred fest. Sometimes a hard ride is worth doing just because of what you might see. This is definitely one of those rides. There are some really punchy up and downs along the 6.5 miles of Bluff Mountain Trail, but they're not too bad. Besides, this is mountain biking. If you don't have to get off the bike and push it from time to time, then you're not really mountain biking. Now are you? So learn to love it. Besides, the views are worth it. Go for the glory. Do something hard every now and then. The trail threads its way back into a grove of noble firs for about a half mile and a fun little descent, but when you get to this downhill, don't forget to skid to a stop and pay attention to the trees. Pay close attention. Every other tree in this forest is standing dead. Like, every dead tree also looks to be a similar age. It seems as though the dead ones were outcompeted by the larger trees or something. I don't see any evidence of disease necessarily. It seems like if it was like beetle kill or something, then it would get every tree. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what killed half the trees in here, but the living ones look healthy. Maybe someone with a silvicultural background can weigh in on this mystery in the comments. After this arboreal aberration, the real fun starts, and by real fun, I mean super rough trail with landslides you'll have to climb over and dangerous exposures where you'll need to walk your bike very carefully. There's no more easy for the rest of the Bluff Mountain Trail. This is the long slog out. There is a lot of pushing the bike for the next few miles as the trail gains about 1,500 feet crawling back out of this saddle. On the plus side, there are great views of both Little Baldy and Starway from the east side, and that's the real reason to come out here, because the most epic, unmatched scenery is really on this side of the Yacolt Burn. The Tarbell Loop may be all single track and much easier, but the good stuff is over here. Hard to get to. On the east side. The trail turns into road after more brushy hike-a-bike and brushy pedaling up steep brushy slopes, then continues as a double track for a couple miles as it climbs all the way up to the knob you'll see in front of you, and then it spits out here at the hairpin in the Sunset Hemlock Road, where there's a big wide parking area that's been trashed by the locals. After hanging out amongst the beer cans, casings, and sundry other burned out items, climb up this hill that's right in front of you. It doesn't look like it goes anywhere. It certainly doesn't look like there's a road up there because the area has had so many people wheeling on it. There's actually a road at the top of this. There's about 150 feet more of elevation to be gained before the road begins with a screaming fast descent until you get to this intersection where you'd better pay attention because you want to take this hairpin left. Do not follow where the road appears to want to go because that won't get you where you want to go. Take this left and proceed to lose about 1,000 feet of elevation before you gain another 200 feet of elevation along what is some of the prettiest road in the whole area through gorgeous forest before arriving here at the top of 173 at another garbage dump with a fire pit. At least the forest around the garbage dump is pretty. The top of 173 starts on this road to your right here. Just coast down this road, coast for about a mile until you see the trail peel off to the left, or don't. You can also just follow the original trail. Either one is fine. I already reviewed 173, so I'm not going to go into detail onto this. It's steep. It's just a white knuckle steep descent. Bring an extra set of brake pads. There aren't really many features on this trail. It's just steep and fast. I'm not even sure why this trail is here. Like, it's basically a really steep hike from a nondescript turn in the road up to a garbage dump. This had to have gone somewhere more interesting at some point in history. I mean, the woods it travels through are kind of cool, and it's really fun to ride a bike on it. Once the steepness ends, the trail drops to Snass Creek, cross the creek, and climb up the road. Turn left on the road, and there's your car, hopefully, right where you left it. Hopefully. 4,600 feet, 23 miles, but the views and the bragging rights were totally worth it.